Hey, welcome to Tabletop Skirmish Games. I'm Lee, and in this Kill Team Faction in Focus video, we'll be taking a look at the Grey Knights. All the information in this video will be taken from the Kill Team Compendium and also the Kill Team Errata that was most recently published. We'll go through the Kill Team build options, data cards, stats and abilities, and then also look at the strategic ploys, tactical ploys and equipment. The Grey Knights are a great looking kill team. I think they're fantastic models and they really can pack a punch as well. And if you're looking to just get one kit and build a kill team out of that, then the Grey Knight Strike Squad is perfect and the RRP is £37.50 in the UK. For that price, you're going to get 10 miniatures and you could potentially make 2 kill teams out of this. Certainly if you proxy one of the figures to be the leader of the second team. The price is going to be different. In the US, it's going to be $60. In Europe, it's going to be €47.50. And in Australia, there'll be 100 Australian dollars. I'll put some links in the description below where you can save up to 20% on that RRP, and that'll be for Element Games and Wayland Games, where you can get them as cheap as $29.82, which I think is a great price for what is an awesome set. So you're going to get those 10 miniatures, and with those 10 miniatures you can build them in every different way, so you can use all the different weapons. You're going to get your Grey Knight Justicar, which is the leader for the kill team, and there's another way of building it, so you've got an alternate here. But I think the other way with the Musk is probably the better way to go. It just looks so cool. And this Justicar has got options of a Nemesis Demon Hammer, Nemesis Falchions, Force Weapon, or Warden Stave. So you've got some different options of what weapon to give as well. So tons of options there, and I think it's really fun. To build, these are one of my favourite sets actually to put together and decide how to assemble them all into different poses. They're really cool. They've got lots of action, really dynamic poses. So really enjoyed putting them together. You can also build 3 Grey Knight Gunners, and so you've got the Incinerator, the Silencer and the Psy Cannon, and so you don't have to choose just 1 or 2 of those from the build options. You can build all 3, which I think is perfect for kill team. So if you did buy this set and had 10, you could literally build them all, and rather than having 2 kill teams from that 10, have a pool of 10 operatives that you could then draw for, knowing that you've got 1 of each weapon built, and I think that's really important. And then once you've built your Grey Knight Justicar and the 3 different types of gunners, you've got 6 models left. And then you can build these as Grey Knight Warriors, and you can give them Demon Hammers, Falchions, Force Weapon, or Warden Stave. So you've got tons of options again of how you build them, and I think they look great. You can see here, this is an example from the Games Workshop website, but building them in all the different poses with all the different weapons is awesome fun. Now we've seen the models, let's head over to the Compendium, get it open, and we'll take a look at all the details for the Grey Knight kill team. And we'll start right at the top here with the archetype. And it tells us here that they're Seek and Destroy and Security. So this comes into play when we can choose our TAC Ops. And you can find TAC Ops on page 138 and 139 of the core rulebook. And so now you can select from both Seek and Destroy and Security TAC Ops. Now let's have a look at the options for putting together the kill team. And it says that a Grey Knight kill team includes 1 Grey Knight Justicar operative equipped with a Storm Bolter and 1 of the following options. And that's going to be the Nemesis Demon Hammer, which is a great name, the Nemesis Falchions, Nemesis Force Weapon, or Nemesis Warding Stave. And you'll see when we go through the data card in a little while that each one is going to give some different stats and some different special rules, and so we can go through those individually. But it's important that although they're all on the data card, as this rule tells us, we can only choose 1 of those. So that's going to have a slight effect maybe on what tactics you play. Next, you can include 4 Grey Knight operatives selected from the following list: the Grey Knight Warrior and the Grey Knight Gunner. And the Grey Knight Warrior is going to be equipped with a Storm Bolter and then 1 of the following options, and it's the same 4 close combat weapons that we saw with the Grey Knight Justicar. But the Grey Knight Gunner is slightly different. They're going to come with fists and then 1 of the following. They can get that Incinerator, the silencer, or the side cannon. But there is a caveat. Your kill team can only include up to one Grey Knight gunner operative, so you really have to choose which one to use. But again, having that pool of 10 is really useful because depending on the mission that you're going on, you could then decide which one of those gunners to bring in for that mission. But I think they would play a key part in it, and we'll have a good look at their stats on the data card again in the video later on as we get through it. Each of the Grey Knights gets a unique action which relates to psychic powers, and each time a friendly Grey Knight operative performs this manifest psychic power action, again we'll see that in the data card later on, you can select one psychic power from the list you can see here. I really like these psychic powers, and they're going to give your Grey Knights the chance to improve their save characteristic, be better at aiming and taking shots, and they're also going to be able to cause additional damage. So I think depending on the situation you're in at the time will depend on which psychic power you use. So having those three different options really kind of shapes what these guys can do. They can certainly get really tough, they can get stuck in up close, but they can also shoot from a distance. So having those three options make these really formidable and real all-rounders. So the first psychic power is called Armoured Resilience, and here until the end of the turning point, improve this operative's save characteristic by 1. Now you're going to see as we go through it, their save characteristic isn't that bad already, but to improve it by 1 certainly gives them a better chance to avert an attack from the enemy's ranged weapons. Next up we've got Hammer Hand, and until the end of the turning point, each time this operative fights in combat, in the resolved successful hit steps of that combat, the first time it strikes, inflict 1 additional damage on the target. Now this is no joke, because you'll see later that the Warrior and Justicar have got some pretty impressive close combat stats, so to be able to inflict 1 additional damage on the target is really strong. So this is a great psychic power. It's going to cost you 1 AP to use any of these psychic powers, but when you consider the damage you could potentially do here, I think it's well worth it. It also tells us that it's until the end of the turning point, and that each time this operative fights in combat. So if this operative fights in combat on their turn and then they're attacked by one of the enemy operatives, then they can still use this Hammer Hand. So each time they make that first strike, they can use this Hammer Hand condition. So really good. This is certainly going to make the enemy think twice about steaming in to get stuck in with some close combat action, but it's also going to maybe push the Grey Knights to not look at parrying as their first action during that combat. So they're going to look to strike rather than parry with this Hammer Hand in effect, I would think. Now the third psychic power is called Astral Aim, and until the end of the turning point, this operative's ranged weapons gain the no cover special rule. You can find this rule on page 143 of the core book in the appendix section, and no cover means that each time a friendly operative makes a shooting attack with this weapon, for that shooting attack, defense dice cannot be automatically retained as a result of cover. They must be rolled instead. So not only can the Grey Knights have some resilience against ranged attacks made on them and improve their close combat, now they can also improve their aim, and this no cover rule is really good. So these three psychic powers I think are brilliant for them. Okay, now let's move on to the data cards, and there's only 3 data cards to go through for the Grey Knights, and I think that makes it a lot simpler to get started with them. And for me, that's a real bonus. So I really like this. At first, I thought I'd be wanting lots of different options, but just having 3 cards with the different weapons on them to choose from, of course, I think is really appealing. So let's start with the first one, which is the Grey Knight Warrior. And in the top right, we've got their physical profile. We've got a movement of 3 white. We've got an action point limit of 3, group activation of 1, defense of 3, the save 3+, and wounds, they can take 11 wounds. If you've looked at any of the Space Marines, then you'll notice that this is very similar. So apart from like your sergeants and your leaders, this is going to be pretty normal for all the Space Marines. but the weapons certainly aren't normal. And the Grey Knight Warrior comes with a Storm Bolter, and this has got some great stats on its own, but it's really the close combat where I think these come into their own. But let's look at the Storm Bolter first. So here you can see the attack is 4, so we can make 4 dice rolls here. And then we've got the ballistic skill is a 3+, and damage is going to be 3 for normal damage and 4 for critical damage. There's no critical hit rules, but we do get a special rule, and that's Relentless. So let's take a look at that. And for Relentless, you can find this again in the appendix of the core book. It tells us that each time a friendly operative fights in combat or makes a shooting attack with this weapon, in the roll attack dice step of that combat or shooting attack, you can re-roll any or all of your attack dice. So this is great. You can roll 4 dice. It's a 3+ ballistic skill, and you can re-roll anyway. So that's crazy. I think this is such a good special rule, and it makes that Storm Bolter really powerful. And then when you consider you're going to have 3 Grey Knight Warriors all armed with a Storm Bolter, using that special rule Relentless when they do shoot, I mean, that's a lot of firepower coming at the enemy from just 3 models. And then on top of that, you're going to have the Gunner and the Justicar. I mean, they're going to be in serious trouble. Right, but now look at these close combat weapons, and these are crazy. So you get to pick one of these. You've got the Demon Hammer, Falchions, Force Weapon, or Warding Stave. With my set, I built one with the Demon Hammer. I only built one with the Nemesis Falchions, but I built 2 with Force Weapons, and then I built 2 with the Warding Stave. But I also gave them a Force Weapon as well, so I've got an option there. So looking at these stats, I wish I'd built 2 Falchions at least, but I think just to mix it up, it would be fun to have 1 hammer, 1 Falchion, and then 1 Force Weapon or Warding Stave. I think that would be a really cool way just to get a little bit of variety throughout the kill team. But let's have a look at the stats. So we've got our Nemesis Demon Hammer first, and this is 5 attacks. The ballistic skill is a 4+, but you're going to do damage of 5 on normal damage and 6 on critical damage. No special rules, but there is a critical rule, and that is stun. Rolling those 5 attack dice is going to give a good chance of some critical damage, so having this stun in there is really useful. But let's take a look at exactly what that means. Again, this is taken from the appendix. Stun can apply to both ranged and close combat, but we only want to look at the close combat. And it tells us here that each time a friendly operative fights in combat with this weapon, in the resolve successful hit steps of that combat, the first time you strike with a critical hit, select one of your opponent's normal hits from that combat to be discarded. The second time you strike with a critical hit, subtract 1 from the target's APL. So this is pretty good. You can really start to do some damage and then also limit their APL. So this is really great. You're not only hurting them, but you're also limiting how many actions they're going to be able to carry out. So pretty good. I like this stun special rule, and I really like having 5 dice to roll. It's really great. But it is a 4+ ballistic skill there, so just bear that in mind. The thing that stands out for me, though, with all these different damage stats is that if you're going up against like a kill team with maybe 10 operatives, their wounds are only going to be quite low, maybe even around 8. So if you hit them twice, that just regular normal damage of 4 is going to take them out. So it's going to be so easy to take out the enemy here. You only have to make 2 hits to do it. So that's pretty impressive. Plus, you could add the Hammer Hand psychic ability to that, and then that's going to deal 1 additional damage anyway. So the potential to really hurt the enemy here is huge. Right, the next close combat weapon is the Nemesis Falchions, and these are going to be attack 5 again, so 5 dice to roll. The weapon skill here is 3+, so that's a little bit better. Now we're looking at damage of 4 for normal damage and 5 for critical damage. But we've got that special rule, which is Relentless, which we've already seen with the Storm Bolter. So this can apply for close combat as well. So a weapon skill of 3+ and the ability to re-roll 1 or all of those attack dice is pretty crazy. And again, that damage 4 to 5 is insane. Next, we've got the Nemesis Force Weapon, and this is the swords. So there's different swords you can build. There's 2-handed swords, 1-handed swords, loads of options in this set. And again, the attack characteristic is 5. It's a 3+ weapon skill. Now the damage is 4, or it's going to be 6 on a critical. So that's really nice. And you've also got a special rule called lethal, and this is going to be 5+. And the lethal rule tells us that each time a friendly operative fights in combat or makes a shooting attack with this weapon, in the roll attack dice step of that combat, your attack dice results of equal to or greater than 5 that are successful hits are now critical hits. So again, with those 5 attacks, there's a really good chance we're going to be getting 5s and 6s anyway. So now we can make those 5s critical hits too. So this is a great rule. Really like this weapon. I'm glad I've built a lot of them with these force weapons. Our fourth and final close combat weapon for the Grey Knight warrior is the Nemesis Warding Stave. And again, we've got 5 attack dice to roll. The weapon skill is 3+. We're looking at 4 normal damage and 5 critical damage. No special rule, but we do get that stun critical hit rule that we went through earlier on. Although this weapon shares the stun critical hit rule with the Nemesis Demon Hammer, it's slightly different stats. Whereas the Demon Hammer's got a weapon skill of 4+, this is better with a 3+, but the damage is going to be less for the stave than the hammer. So you're only going to do 4 on a normal hit and then 5 on like critical damage. So just weighing that up. Do you want something that causes more damage or something with a better chance to actually hit? That covers the weapons, and our warrior doesn't have any abilities, but they do have that unique action that we went through earlier, and this is the Manifest Psychic Power. It's going to cost 1 AP to be able to use this. And then once you've spent that AP, you can choose from the 3 different psychic powers. Now down the bottom we've got the keywords, and we've got Grey Knight, Imperium, Sanctic Astartes, Brotherhood, so we just put which Brotherhood we want to use in there, Psyker and Warrior. And then in the bottom right hand corner we've got our specialisms, and you can see here that the warrior can choose from combat, staunch or marksman, but not scout. And this comes into effect when you're playing a Spec Ops narrative campaign and you get to choose the different battle honours. So you can choose the different battle honours from any that are highlighted here in orange, and then for each of the specialisms you get 6 different battle honours. Now we're on to our Grey Knight Gunners. I think these are fantastic models. You can build them as the Incinerator, Silencer or Psycannon, and all the bits are in there, and so you can make all 3 with the kit too. Fantastic models that look brilliant, and here you can see they're really powerful as well. So backing up those other ones, those warriors who are going to come in with some pretty powerful close combat action, these guys could sit back a little bit, maybe not the Incinerator, but the others certainly, and really rain down some fire on the enemy. We've got the characteristics here, and you can see it's exactly the same as the warrior. We've got movement 3, APL 3, GA1, defense 3, save 3+, and wounds 11. So no difference there. But check out these ranged weapons. There's some superior firepower here and really fun as well. Now you can only take 1 gunner into your kill team at any one time. You can have all 3 in your pool to draw through for different missions, but when you do go into that mission, you can only choose 1 of them. And the first of those weapons is the Incinerator. And here the attack is 6, so you can roll 6 dice, which is always fun. Your ballistic skill is 2+, so that's brilliant. Now damage is going to be 2 for normal damage and 3 for critical damage. So not super high, but don't forget you're rolling 6 dice and it's a 2+. So, you know, that's a good chance of getting a lot of hits there. And look at all these special rules too. You get tons. You've got the heavy special rule. The range is now going to be 6 inches. So the other weapons are going to be unlimited range, but this one is going to be a range of 6 inches. So you do have to get up close to use it. But you've also got the torrent special rule as well. So there's lots going on here. Let's first look at the heavy special rule. So with this, an operative cannot perform a charge, fallback, or normal move action in the same activation in which it performs a shoot action with this ranged weapon. And so I think this makes sense. It's a heavy weapon. They got to like get a good stance. They got to get it like revved up to use it. And so that kind of fits into the narrative of this. So rather than it actually giving any benefit, it's actually giving you a little bit of a hindrance, and it's going to affect certainly how you play with this. I think in some turns there's going to be a lot of movement going on to get you into position, get close enough to the enemy to do some damage. But then once you do, wait until you see the torrent special rule, because this is going to do a lot of damage. So here's the torrent rule, and so torrent is normally followed by one of the distances. So here we've got white, so we know that the torrent is going to be for 2 inches, and each time a friendly operative performs a shoot action or overwatch action and selects this weapon, after making a shooting attack against the target, it can make a shooting attack with this weapon against each other valid target within white of the original target and each other. So this has got the potential to do a huge amount of damage. You get this up close to enough of the enemy operatives, it'll bunch together and you can really take them out. That's 6 dice for each one. So, you know, again with a 2+ ballistic skill, that's a lot of damage raining on them. But you do have to get close, and you know, he does only have those fists as his close combat weapon, so he's going to be quite vulnerable up close, and there is going to be a lot of movement to get him there, preparing to shoot. He could also potentially be a big target for the enemy to shoot at as he's making that advance. So I think it's really going to be a case of moving him carefully through the cover to get him close enough, or maybe use him as a deterrent to stop the enemy swarming forward, because if they can get within range of him, he's going to just destroy them. Right, next up we've got the Silencer, and this again is an attack of 6, so 6 dice, which is always brilliant to roll. You've got a ballistic skill of 3+, you've got a damage, normal damage of 3, and a critical damage of 4. So the damage is going up now, but also the ballistic skill, so not so easy to hit, but still pretty good. We've got special rules of heavy, which we've been through, so he's not going to be able to do those movements if he's going to use the weapon to shoot in this activation, but he does get a different special rule called Fusillade. This tells us that each time a friendly operative performs a shoot action and selects this weapon, after selecting a valid target, you can select any number of other valid targets within white of the original target. Distribute your attack dice between the targets you have selected. Make a shooting attack with this weapon using the same profile against each of the targets you have selected using the attack dice you have distributed to each of them. So this is pretty cool. Rather than just putting all your shots into one enemy operative, you can split it up as if you're spraying like bullets around. So if you want to take out up to 6 potentially and take 1 dice each, you know, you can do that. So as long as they're within that white of the target though, once you've designated the target, they have to be within white of them. And again, if they're bunching up, that's really useful. Get this guy in a vantage point. He can shoot across the whole battlefield, so he can certainly aim at some bunching together. And if you can even split it up and do 3 each, that's not bad at all. You only have to do a few normal hits to start really taking some wounds off the enemy, and then when your other guys can move forward and get stuck in with close combat, they haven't got as much work to do. So this guy could be really useful at weakening the enemy, putting a wall up to spray against them, maybe even use him in Overwatch. That could be a good option too. Now we're on to our final range weapon, which is the side cannon, and we've got an attack of 5 here, so 5 dice. The ballistic skill is 3+. The damage is pretty good though. You can do 4 with normal damage, 6 with critical damage, and the only special rule is heavy, so you don't get any advantage here, but again, you just can't do that charge, fall back or move in the same activation that you choose to shoot. So these are all heavy weapons. But this is going to be really nice if you want to take out a single enemy from a distance. You know, doing that 4 or 6 damage is great with 5 attack dice as well. That's going to be pretty good. And, you know, unlimited distance, you can shoot them from across the battlefield and take them down. And again, if you're going up against those kill teams with 10 operatives, 8 wounds or 7 wounds even, then you're going to take them out with just 2 hits. So potential to do some serious damage and eliminate some single operatives here. Now we're on to the single close combat option they have, and that's just their fists. They're going to get stuck in with their fists here. Maybe hit them with a weapon, but no specific close combat weapons. And the attacks are 4. The weapon skill is going to be 3+. The damage is going to be 3 for normal damage and 4 for critical damage, with no special rules or critical hit rules. Now this isn't too bad, but you certainly don't want to be using these guys up close in close combat. Keep these out of the way, maybe stick them on a vantage point or get that incinerator close enough within 6-inch range to do some damage, but not too close where he's going to get into too many fights. So I think these guys are definitely like your fire support, and use them in that way for sure. Not worry about getting them in close combat too much, and you don't need to. You've got 4 others who are super strong up close. We've got the same unique action here, the manifest psychic power, so we know that we can choose one of those 3 if we want to, and again tactically you can decide which one's going to be best for this guy. We've got keywords which are going to be the same as the previous operative, but we've got gunner included for this one. And then we've got the specialisms here, so he's only going to be able to choose between staunch and marksman once you start going into the spec ops campaigns and you want some battle honours. Now we're on to our final data card, and this is for the Grey Knight Justicar. This is going to be your leader for your kill team, and this is a great model again, really cool pose. You can swap those heads out as we saw earlier on, but I think having them all with the helmets looks much better, and this guy just looks epic. For our physical profile here, there's a little bit of a difference. The movement, APL, the GA, defense, save, they're the same, but with the wounds it's 12, so we can take a little bit more damage here, so you can take 1 extra wound than the regular warriors and the gunners. Just like the warrior, he's going to be armed with the storm bolter for just that 1 ranged weapon option, but the stats are a little bit different here. The attack is still 4, so 4 dice. The damage is 3 normal and 4 critical, but the ballistic skill has improved. Now we've got a 2+ instead of the 3+ that we saw with the warrior. We've also got the same special rule, which is relentless. Now this is awesome because if you're making 4 attack rolls, it's 2+ anyway, so that's pretty good. But now you can re-roll 1 or all of your dice, so that's crazy. So, you know, it's a 2+ anyway, but if you get 1s, you can just re-roll them. So a very good chance most of these shots are going to get through. Now we're on to the close combat weapons, and this is where this guy certainly excels. Now all the weapons are the same as the Grey Knight Warrior, and the attacks are the same, the damage output's the same, but the weapon skill has improved, and it's improved by 1 for each weapon. So now we've got the Demon Hammer on a 3+ weapon skill, the Falcon's 2+, Force Weapon 2+, and the Warden's Stave 2+. And so when you then look at all the special rules and critical hit rules that are in place for these weapons, makes this guy a monster, and I think he's going to be a real target, and the enemy's going to want to get him out of the way pretty quickly, because again, you know, you're only looking at 2 hits to potentially take out an enemy operative, and that's going to be done so easy. But they're going to want to get forward quickly, use their storm bolters as they advance, but once they get into close combat, they're just going to be savage, I think. Then when you combine those great stats with the unique actions and those manifest psychic powers that you can choose from, this guy's going to be really strong and a great leader. I think these stats are really impressive, and it's going to be awesome to play this guy. For keywords, we've got pretty much the same, but except now we've got leader and Justicar included in the keywords there. And for specialisms, we can choose between combat, staunch, and marksman, so some nice options for those battle honours. Now we've gone through the data cards, let's look at the strategic ploys we can use for our Grey Knights during the game. The first one is Bolter Discipline. This is going to cost us 1 command point, and until the end of the turning point, each time a friendly Grey Knight operative is activated, if it does not perform a fight action during that activation, it can perform 2 shoot actions during that activation if a Storm Bolter is selected for each of those shooting attacks. So unfortunately this is only for Storm Bolters, so it's only going to apply to the Warrior and Justicar, which is useful I suppose as they're advancing. If they need to take some extra shots, that could be good, but how cool would it have been if we could do 2 with the Gunner? But that would have just been crazy. The next one is Shock Assault, again 1 command point, and until the end of the turning point, each time a friendly Grey Knight operative is activated, if it does not perform a shoot action during that activation, it can perform 2 fight actions during that activation. So I could imagine using this a lot with the Grey Knights, with the Justicar and the Warrior. This is going to be a huge one for them. I mean, this is mad. You can just see the damage they're going to be able to do just with one command point, adding this to it. And certainly once they're close enough, you want to be attacking as much as possible in close combat. So this is really great. But this Bolt of Discipline and Shock Assault you see with a lot of the Space Marines, and it can get quite repetitive and a bit boring just doing it over and over again. So let's have a look at the next two, Tide of Shadows and Tide of Celerity. Right, so Tide of Shadows, until the end of the turning point, each time an enemy operative on a vantage point makes a shooting attack, each friendly Grey Knight operative that has a conceal order is in cover provided by light terrain and is more than red from that enemy operative cannot be treated as being on an engage order for that shooting attack as a result of that vantage point. So this is quite wordy, but basically it's going to give your Grey Knights a little ability there to take away that bonus that the enemy is going to get from being in a vantage point. So that's going to help with the line of sight and cover rules there. So while this isn't very exciting to read for sure, I think it's going to be useful for the Grey Knights because you really want to get those Justicar warriors up close to the enemy as fast as possible, and using the terrain and getting through it, that's going to be needed to keep in cover, and the enemy's just going to be wanting to stop you at all costs, shooting you as you're moving forward and advancing towards them. So I think this Tide of Shadows could be really handy for the Grey Knights. Finally, we've got Tide of Celerity, and until the end of the turning point, each time a friendly Grey Knight operative performs a charge action, it can move an additional black for that action. So that's an extra 1 inch we can add to the charge, which again is going to get these guys into the close combat action a lot quicker. And so I think it doesn't seem a lot, but this is going to be really useful once you're pushing forward. Now we've got the tactical ploys that we could use with the Grey Knights, and we're going to get 2 altogether. Each one is going to be 1 command point. The first is Only in Death does duty end, and we use this tactical ploy when a ready, friendly Grey Knight operative is incapacitated. That operative is not removed from the kill zone until the end of your next activation and does not count as being injured. This was updated in the errata where they added or the end of the battle, whichever comes first. The second tactical ploy is called And They Shall Know No Fear, and we use this tactical ploy when a friendly Grey Knight operative is activated. Until the end of that operative's activation, you can ignore any or all modifiers to its APL characteristic, and it's not classed as injured. So there we go. So that's pretty useful again. If that APL's affected by the enemy, you can ignore that, and even if they've been taking a lot of damage, you don't have to worry about that too. This is going to be really useful, and I think it's going to certainly help the Grey Knights because they're not going to have to subtract that white from their movement characteristic, and also their weapon skill for those close combats aren't going to be worsened by 1. So that's really good as well. So I think this one could come into play quite a lot. Now let's work through all the equipment available to the Grey Knights, and there's some cool equipment here, starting with the Cybolt ammunition, which is 3 EP, and we select 1 Storm Bolter the operative is equipped with, add 1 to that weapon's damage characteristic for the battle. So that's really nice. We're going to be able to go from a 3 on normal, 4 on critical, to a 4 normal, 5 critical. And again, having that 4 I think is crucial because 2 hits could take down an enemy operative. Next we've got Sanctic Blessing for 2 EP, and the operative gains the following ability for the whole battle. Once per battle, during this operative's activation, it can perform a free Manifest Psychic Power action. So this is great. We can save 1 AP during an activation and basically get a free Manifest Psychic Power. So that's really cool. Next we've got the Hexagrammic Ward for 2 EP, and with this we can only select it once, so we can only use this once for the whole kill team. And here we get an ability. So Hexagrammic Ward once per battle, when an enemy operative that is visible to this operative performs a psychic action, this operative could use this ability. If it does so, roll 1d6. On a 3+, that action's psychic power is not resolved. The action points subtracted for that action are not refunded. Oh, so that's pretty good. So you're not going to use this all the time, but if you're going up against an enemy who's got some psychic abilities, then this could be really useful. But you're only going to be able to pick 1, so you can only give it to 1 operative. Next up, we've got True Silver Armour for 3p, and this operative now has a save characteristic of 2+ for the battle. So that's really nice. I'd be tempted to give that to one of the gunners to keep them into it, but maybe even the Grey Knight Justicar, because he's a pretty tough customer, and it would certainly be nice to give him a better chance to deflect some of those ranged weapons as he's advancing towards the enemy. Next, we've got the Purity Seal for 3 AP, and we get an ability here. So once per battle, when this operative is fighting in combat, making a shooting attack, or a shooting attack is being made against it, you can use the command reroll tactical ploy without spending any CP. So that's pretty useful. There is that tactical ploy that anyone can use for 1 CP where you can get the command reroll. So really useful to be able to use that and keep that CP for something a bit more interesting. And finally, we've got the Psych Out Grenade, a great name for a grenade here. And you can see you've got attack of 4, the ballistic skills are 3+, damage is going to be 1 on a normal damage and 1 on critical damage. But lots of special rules. You've got a range, so that's a range of red, which is 6 inches, limited, blast white, so 2 inches, indirect, and psych out. So lots to read through there. So I'd recommend checking out that appendix and really learning about these psych out grenades to see if they're worth it or not. But let's see what psych out means. Each time a shooting attack is made with this weapon, if the target has the psyker or demon keyword for that shooting attack, change its damage characteristics to 3/5, and it has the lethal 5+ special rule. So that's crazy. That's really good. And again, if you're going up against any psychics here or demons, this is going to be amazing and really changes the damage that this does. So I love this. A great name and some really great special rules. That brings us to the end of the Grey Knights and all the information contained in the compendium. There's going to be some other things we can do with them in the narrative campaign, but that's all from the core book. So there's nothing specialised or specific to the Grey Knights that we can use for them in the Spec Ops narrative campaign. So I won't include that here. I'm really loving these models. I've nearly finished painting them and I've had a great time learning about what they can do and doing some dummy runs with them unpainted on the tabletop. So I can't wait to really focus on these. I'm going to make these my main kill team for the time being and really get to grips with all these tactics and put it into play. So look out for some more videos about the Grey Knights coming soon. If you'd like to pick up your own set, the Grey Knights Strike Squad, then I'll put those links in the description below. There'll be affiliate links, but won't cost you extra. You'll save up to 20%, and you'll also support the channel as I get a small commission from every sale made. So if you do choose to purchase through that link, I really appreciate it. Thanks so much. I hope you enjoyed the video and I hope it's given you a good overview of the Grey Knights to see if it's something you'd like to add to your kill team collection. But I've really enjoyed putting this together and learning all about them. I think this is the first time a kill team's actually clicked for me, and so these I can really imagine making my main kill team and really going deep on what they can do. I've done another kill team faction in focus for the Deathgore Krieg and loads of individual videos for the operatives of the Orc Commandos as well. But I'll be doing lots more faction in focus videos. They're quite in depth and take a little bit of time, but they are coming soon. But for now, thanks so much for watching. Please like if you like it, subscribe for more videos like this, and don't forget to hit that notification bell to join me next time on Tabletop Skirmish Games. If you like this kind of content and would like to support the channel, then please check out my Patreon page, and thanks to everyone who's joined so far. It's really awesome. We hang out on Discord, talk about the hobby, share ideas and help each other out, and you'll get some perks there that you're not going to find anywhere else. So I'll put a link in the description and it'd be great to see you there.